I'm Joe Helko, your host, and welcome to another episode of NCSS Here for You. Since 1958, Northwestern Counseling and Support Services has been providing access to high-quality services which promote healthy living and emotional well-being for the residents of Franklin and Grand Isle counties. Over the years, as the needs of the community have changed, so too have the programs and services that we make available to assist children, adolescents, adults, families, and seniors. We take our role in the community seriously and strive to provide a continuum of the highest quality services to meet the needs of individuals who at any point seek assistance. Also, 2025 marks a milestone for NCSS Here for You, as it's the 20th year that we've produced shows that air monthly highlighting the numerous services provided by NCSS. The month of April is Autism Acceptance Month. And during May, NCSS will be holding the 10th annual Autism Walk at Collins Purley in St. Albans. Since being established in 2008, the School Based Autism program has continually evolved to meet the needs of our community, initially designed to support students with autism spectrum disorders, but services now reach a wider range of students with varying diagnoses and individual needs, helping them to access their educational and make their education and their progress on their individual goals. With this, NCSS is excited to announce a name change to its program. The School Based Autism program has now been changed to the School Based Adaptive program to better represent the range of services that the team provides. To discuss the various services that the NCSS School-Based Adaptive Program provides individuals who are diagnosed with an autism spectrum disorder, while also reaching a wide range of students with varying diagnoses and individual needs, plus a discussion about the upcoming Autism Walk, I'm pleased to introduce this month's guests. They are Shawna Shappy, who is School-Based Adaptive Program Team Leader, and Megan Gargano, also a School-Based Autism Adaptive Program Leader. Now, it's a mouthful for me because it's different and it's relatively new, as I understand it. So I want to welcome both of you to the program, and I know you're veterans, you've been here over the years, but now you're coming with a bit of a different view and really more of an overreaching program than in the past, which is really exciting. So, let's begin, first of all, by acknowledging that during the month of April, it is Autism Acceptance Month and that it is being celebrated. And how do you view the importance of this initiative each year?
Yeah, April being, this awareness month, but also today in particular is World Autism Day. So we have really good timing with today's discussion. I think the importance of identifying a month where we can really promote and highlight all the efforts that people are doing to promote acceptance. A lot of the things that we've done in the past have been really focused on awareness and acceptance, and we've continuously made shifts to really focus on the acceptance piece of this. And really, it's about creating an inclusive community and promoting exactly that awareness so that people understand difference and people understand that everybody has different needs, and really creating an environment that's going to support everybody in that community. And so for me, this month is about highlighting that and bringing people in and sharing knowledge and education and information and resources to kind of to do that, to promote that awareness and just kind of build that inclusivity and really supportive community.
And, excuse me, so let's talk about the recent name change of the program. Once again, what once was the School-Based Autism Program, now being renamed to the School-Based Adaptive Program. And what was it that prompted the change?
Yeah, for us, it's really new too. So we continuously remind ourselves of when I say School-Based Autism Program, just kind of rolls off the tongue because we've been saying it for 17 years now. So yeah, really, when we first started this program back in 2008, our initial goal was to fill this gap in services in our community and really be able to bring experts in autism to our public schools. So that was really the initial goal, was to say, you know, at NCSS and Franklin and Grand Isle counties, we didn't have anything that specialized in autism services.
Yeah, right.
So that was our initial goal. And, you know, over the years, we've really, especially recently, you know, we've kind of gone back and forth about changing our name over the last several years, and there just never really seemed to be, you know, a great time to do it. But it's because we really started to get more referrals from schools and from families who, as we established ourselves in the community across the years, you know, we're getting referrals for other individuals who don't have an autism spectrum diagnosis, but have other types of neurodiversity that really, you know, still fit within our program. So our program got very big, and, you know, we started to serve children and adolescents who had other diagnoses, Down syndrome, intellectual disability. We have a lot of kiddos who have medical complexities, seizure disorders, muscular dystrophy, cerebral
Genetic
palsy.
disorders,
Yeah, so it really became, you know, anything under that neurodevelopmental umbrella,
Sure.
which includes autism, of course, it is what we became known for. So our shift recently, you know, was really about celebrating neurodiversity and really focusing on what our program's intention is that both for individuals on the autism spectrum, as well as, you know, any child who needs some of those other modifications and adaptations to their environment in order to access their education, that's our goal, you know. And so, you know, while identity and diagnosis is important, of course, it also is, for us, is more just about how can we support. And so the adaptive word, one, we wanted to keep it SBAP because we've been so what's an A word that we can use? And adaptive just fits really well, because that's really what our goal is to adapt environments to make them comfortable and welcoming for everyone.
You know, not to mention that when we do talk about, first of all, children, adolescents on the spectrum, and keeping the acronym, I understand that the way that you want it, but really when you think about adaptability, and that each and every individual has their own plan to begin with, so I think, you know, that was a good choice of modifying that particular word to be much more inclusive of all individuals who are dealing with any kind of delay of any sort.
And I think about access to services too. Like, that was another big reason why we considered shifting away from the word autism in our name.
Yes.
Because it was representative of the services we were providing and the work that we were doing. But as things shifted and kind of that broader spectrum was created in terms of who we're serving and providing the services to, there was you know, a lot of misunderstanding or like miscommunication and representation of what our services could offer. And so it's like, we don't just serve autistic individuals. We serve anybody who could benefit from those services. And that was really, that's been a really positive shift from the community. It's been received well because of that. It's a little more clear about what we do.
Sure. So let's talk a little bit, can you talk about the history of the services within the school-based adaptive program? Because I know they're wide and varied, but...
Yeah, it's definitely been a journey, and really amazing to see where we started to where we are today. You know, like I said, this July, it'll be 17 years since we started. And in 2008, there were 5 of us, you know, and all of our clients did have an autism diagnosis at the time. We were in 2 schools at that point.
Sure, yeah.
And so, you know, from 2008 to, you know, 2018, 19, that first decade even, you know, there were 55 of us right before, you know, 2020. And so we got very large, and we, of course, expanded across, you know, at any given point, we've been in all of the public schools in Franklin and Grand Isle County, which is really great. You know, our initial model was to provide that one-on-one behavior interventionist to be able to support an individual in the school setting. And so, you know, we come in and we provide assessments, write those individualized plans, train our staff, and have highly qualified staff that come in and help and collaborate with the school team to how do we modify, you know, that education, what are those goals, And so at the time, a lot of that was provided within one-on-one kind of settings, so some of our students were in the classroom with their same age peers, and we were providing some of those behavioral goals and planning within there. But then also a lot of our students needed a high level of modification for their academics, their life skills, their personal care, all of those things, communication, social, all of the goals that we really focus on. And at that time, we were 100% of the time we were in the school setting. And so we did a lot of, our services in a one-on-one workspace, and then kind of, collaborating with the other service providers, speech language pathologists, special educators. We were creating that modified curriculum and that plan that way.
Yeah.
And then over the years, we started to do more community kind of services to be able to take those IEP goals and really be able to practice them in real world settings. And, fast forward to 2020, we kind of were forced to get creative with our programming.
Sure.
We learned very quickly that, most of our students were not able to access remote learning in a successful way. And so we were back in person very quickly while schools were still shut down, and we had to have a space to do that. So we initially started that in Enosburg, and then that fall of 2020, we were in Richford. And then from the fall of 2020 to the fall of 2024, this past fall, we were in Richford. And what we found was that all of these individuals who had a lot of really individualized programming, a lot of one-on-one time, once we were able to actually meet them where they were at and pair them up with other peers across the county, and really, other kids that they would never have crossed paths with otherwise. They might be the only student in a school, that's way up in Alberg or wherever, where that they're the only student that's receiving services like this. So now all of a sudden we really saw the growth was just unintentionally, was huge, was amazing. And so once schools started to open back up, families and schools were saying, wait, we still want this, and that didn't really exist as a thing, and so we just kind of kept with it and kept building it. And it's really a great opportunity for us as a public school, school-based service provider, to be able to take those IEP goals and really be able to set up structures where kids are able to practice those goals in real-world settings, and really like hands-on, customized activities with a group of peers to be able to practice those social skills too. And that's kind of where we are now. I could talk all day about our journey. That was a really short snapshot of a 17-year, I don't know if you have more that you want to add to that too, but.
Yeah, I feel like what's been really great to see in reflecting where we've come from and where we are now is that a lot of what we were doing in the school setting was, we use the analogy of like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, because we were doing as much as we could. We were in a one-on-one workspace, so we had flexibility to be creative and adaptive and make programming or implement programming that was going to support their overall goals. But there's only so much you can do in a school setting. And that's really where we've seen, I think that's where when we talk about families and schools have really said, no, we want to keep this and we want to continue, and we've seen a lot of progress. And it's because we were bringing kids into the environment where they could actually practice and learn and be exposed to those skills versus doing it in this environment, in this setting where we were just maybe talking about it or practicing it in a non-contextual way. And that was a really big barrier to learning. And so I think that's been really cool to see in our center, is that it's so hands-on and it's so contextual and it's so in the moment. And we've seen a ton of progress and just like meaningful growth.
Yeah. So you've mentioned this journey, and from Enosburg and Richford to locally now. So let's talk about, speaking of the center, that you recently held an open house for your new location. And number one, how did that go? And can you explain even further some of the advantages of this new space that you now have?
Yeah, so we have a space, right in St. Albans now, which is obviously local, central to all of the schools that we're supporting. And, first and foremost, it being closer, the amount of time that we're able to provide services has increased. Our amount of time for programming has increased because we're not in the car, so just that transportation piece of it that we were providing in between school and the community programming has shaped a lot of what we're able to provide. And then it also allows us, again, the goal of this as, and stressing that we really are a school-based program. We're not a community-based program.
Yeah.
And so what we're able to do with all of the team members that we collaborate with at each of our schools for each of our kiddos is to be able to take all of those goals, and then we have this space that, has a full kitchen and has, all of these individual spaces that we can set up where we're actually doing those hands-on pieces. And it's a quick travel from schools, and so most of our kids at this point are accessing 5 days a week, where they will start in their school in the morning. They'll be there until maybe 10 o'clock, and then their staff will transport them to the space where we have that structure. So every day is kind of a different focus. So as an IEP team, we're sitting down and determining which of these goals is really going to fit with what the IEP team goals are for each individual. But us being able to focus on those social life skills and the movement and wellness kind of pieces, the pre-vocational stuff, and really being able to then utilizing our local community around us in St. Albans with all of the businesses that we've partnered with and created these great relationships with. Kids are being able to then take those skills and even further be able to generalize those and apply those skills into real world settings. And and it's great to be able to go out into the businesses around town and who know us and know kids by name and are really working with us too on how do we prepare for transition out of school, because that's really our ultimate goal. It's great that we get kids for as long as we do while they're in school, but really our ultimate goal is to say what are their hopes and dreams, what are their families' hopes and dreams, and what is that going to look like for each of our individuals when they graduate and when they're not in our program, and to set them up to be as independent as they can be, and to be happy and engaging in things that bring them joy and that they're successful at, and that we can build some skills. That's really the goal. So having that local space, the open house went great. I kind of went off on that question, but yeah, the open house was great, and we always welcome people to contact us and come and see the space at any point in time too. So yeah.
So yeah, it sounds like without question, it's the perfect match.
Yeah.
The perfect match. So let's transition a little bit here in our discussion as to how has the field of applied behavior analysis changed over the years, and how has your program responded to this?
Yeah. So, ABA, applied behavior analysis, the field that we're in and the credentials that we have, and really us emphasizing really frequently, like we're an evidence-based, science-based field. And like all other evidence-based fields, it evolves over time. And ABA is, in the grand scheme of things, in our timeline as an evidence-based science to support and provide interventions for changing behavior. We're really young as a field. And so it's been really great to see some of the more recent shifts that our field is trying to make and taking active steps to make regarding how we're providing services and how we're making those meaningful changes in somebody's life. And a lot of the shifts that have happened within the field recently are focusing on more of that inclusivity and that cultural awareness and being able to have compassion as we're looking at supporting somebody through ABA intervention. And that's not to say that we were, being intentionally uncompassionate in the past, but really looking at what are the other things that are important to consider as we're talking about ABA as an intervention. It's not just about the program or the way that we're approaching the behavior in this moment, but it's also about how does the family feel about this? How does the client feel about this? Have we asked them? Are we including them in these conversations? And really, a lot of it is an emphasis and focus on emotional well-being, and kind of that sitting in the center of how we approach things. And I think that there's been a big shift, even in making sure that we're having conversations regularly in the moment about those pieces. So it's not like, oh yeah, we asked them about how they're feeling when we made the program or we made the recommendation, but it's checking in with the students throughout the day and really just checking in on how they are. And that's been, I think that our program in particular has done a really, made a lot of efforts and done a really good job in kind of taking that approach and having that mentality as we approach services. And I think it's reflective of the progress that our kiddos are making. Our kiddos and our young adults are making tons of progress. And I think it's directly related to, how we're approaching ABA as a program.
Yeah, and that's terrific. So how are individuals and their families involved with the services that we're providing?
We do a lot of, which we haven't done in the past. I feel like in the past we've updated a parent at a team meeting or shared their progress and maybe shown a graph of progress over time of the skill that they've learned, or we're talking about this at a table with somebody. And I feel like we've completely shifted from that. We still do that. We still have meetings with teams, school teams, families to assess and see how things are going and make the necessary changes we need to make to continue to make that progress. But a lot of what we're doing now is kind of sharing those and celebrating those successes more broadly. So we do things like the open house, and we're inviting parents in to activities. Every year for the last few years, we've done an end of year celebration where we have families and siblings and relatives come and do a barbecue with us with the students that we serve. We do that for the holidays, and we have a Thanksgiving dinner. The kids help participate in making the food, and they get to share that with their families. For families who are providing us with consent to take photos, we are able to share those with parents now. And what's really, really amazing about that is parents aren't with their kids all day at school, so they're not seeing the work that they're doing other than, here's a worksheet that they did, or here's an example of something that they've completed, where now we're able to share photos and videos of real life experiences that they're learning how to navigate or participating in that they maybe aren't doing with their families because they're working on that skill. I think of the example of we've had parents reach out to us and say I just brought them to the grocery store for the first time and it was successful. I was able to go into the store, buy my groceries and leave, and it wasn't a difficult or a challenging experience for the parent or the child. Or even skills like generalizing to the home setting. We do a lot of meal prep and packaging and portioning, and we have families that are yeah, they came home from the grocery store and portioned out all of our food for the evening, and those are the things that are really cool to hear from families, that those skills are carrying over.
Excellent. That is great to hear. Now, on May the 18th, the 10th annual, I'm sure that's hard to believe that it's going to be 10 years already.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But the 10th annual Autism Walk, NCSS Autism Walk, will be held at Collins Purley in St. Albans. So could you talk about a couple of things? Number one, the importance of this cause-related event, and also what participants can expect that day who attend.
Yeah. When I think of the walk and I think of this event, I think of the word community, and it really is about bringing people from our community together to promote that awareness. And then it's about, it's also about having fun. We try to make the walk as fun as possible.
Sure.
And
We're still in the planning phases.
We're still in the planning phases. But it's also about providing resources and allowing an opportunity for people to make more connections or build more community. So it really is about opportunity. And, this year I think that we're looking at, especially because it's our 10th annual and it's kind of a really great milestone to celebrate, we're looking at making the event bigger and better. So we're exploring different fun activities for kids to participate in while they're there. We're looking at extending invites to additional, I'll say vendors, but like additional community members, for them to come and provide resources, whether that's local police officers or, members of the community who are going to be able to provide additional resources or services for individuals with neurodivergence. There's just a lot more that we're trying to do this year. And I'm excited to see kind of how it all pans out. We're exploring some fun new ideas.
We'll have a DJ, great music. There'll be, free food. And then, like we said, we usually have face painters and games and, sensory kind of activities. And then, of course, the walk itself. And hopefully it's a nice, bright, sunny day. And, but, it's always a really great time. And, I think that ultimately our goal of that, much like with kind of including individuals themselves as well as parents and families even more in the services that we provide, the goal of this walk is to bring the community together. And for families to be able to meet other families and for individuals, autistic individuals to meet others. And, so that's really the ultimate goal is, to have these fun things to kind of bring us all together and just to celebrate neurodiversity and acceptance. And we're excited.
It's interesting because we say walk, which there is a walk, but I think one of the most important things is there's so much more to the day than the walk. And to your point, this is really, speaking of celebration, a celebration for all the families and individuals, and that they can meet others and know they're not alone, and make connections, and hopefully some connections that they can tap into throughout the year with individuals that maybe they hadn't met in the past. But truly a great event, and to your point, Shawna, hopefully, because as we all know, in May, the weather can be dicey. I know there's been some phenomenal days in the past, and there's been some rough weather days in other times. But I think the big thing is that as long as the weather holds out and people can come together and, experience that connection and celebrate their differences.
And even if it's rainy, still come because our partnership with the Collins Pearly is phenomenal, and we're able to, have the walk in the whole event inside. And so it certainly won't be canceled by any means, and everything that we're planning on doing will just shift inside. So.
That is true. It can all be done inside without question, due to them you're right, Collins Pearly is a great partner. So, believe it or not, our time is up. So, I want to thank my guests, Shawna Shappy and Megan Gargano, for sharing their insights on the NCSS School Based Adaptive Program, which make a difference in the lives of students diagnosed with an autism spectrum disorder, and in addition, reaching a wide range of students with varying diagnoses and individual needs. I also want to thank you, the viewer, for spending time with us again this month. You can learn more about all of our programs and services by logging on to ncssinc.org. I'm Joe Halco, and I'll be back next month with another episode of NCSS Here for You.